Hi everyone, and welcome to part 4 of Living in High Color, where we untangle the complexities of being colored in South Africa. So last week we spoke about the unaddressed and unacknowledged continuous trauma stemming from the days of slavery and how it has manifested thought patterns, mindsets, etc., from one generation to the next. So, this segment we are going to talk about a subculture within the colored culture, and that's internalized racism, or should I say internalized toxic racism, and racial self hatred. I just need to clarify something that internalized racism and self-hatred, it's not really a subculture per se as what it is a symptom of a broader societal issue, and it stems from historical trauma and systemic oppression. And what it does, it manifests itself in daily life, relationships of all kinds, and one's self-perception. So racism, what is racism? It's the belief that one ethnic group has that they are superior above all others. So within my family, racism, or should I say internalized racism, was the elephant in the room. It wasn't talked about, it wasn't discussed, nothing, but it was felt. It was really felt. And in order for one to fully comprehend the impact of apartheid, one needs to imagine walking in the shoes of people like, say, my parents, etc. So now that my parents, they enjoyed life as free human beings. They were free to go anywhere. There was no restrictions. Everything was done within the parameters of the law. And then boom, apartheid marches in, and suddenly your skin tone determines what race you're going to be classified as. And there was just four: white, black, colored, and Indian. There was no such thing as other colored or mixed anymore. And it was chosen for you. And then, yes, freedom's taken away. That which you knew was now not anymore. And for those who had to be forcibly removed, just imagine, just want you for a second to just imagine the amount of anxiety, stress, you name it. See the feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, frustration, confusion, the feelings of anger that must have been felt by all these homeowners when knowing that they were going to be ousted out of their homes, etc. And just remember, this didn't happen just overnight. It was over a period of time where people were systematically being moved out of their homes and popped in everywhere else. But now just imagine, you're seeing your friends leaving, you see the street is emptying of mixed race people, you know it's your turn. Just imagine you're constantly in knots inside, agonizing over what is happening and how could it happen, how could anyone allow it to happen, and yet it's happened, and you have to accept it. And not accepting it in any event, internally fighting it, but externally you cannot do anything because government has spoken. So just imagine how absolutely terrifyingly traumatizing that must have been. Because I'm not a product of, I wasn't born before apartheid. I was born in the era of apartheid. So for me, it was a normalized thing already. But for my folks, it was everything but normalized. It was something totally alien and something new. And it was a terrible oppression. And they had to learn to live with it. And then, we came along and we didn't know any different. So for us, it was okay. So back to my family dynamics, sorry. So as a child, I didn't know all of this. I didn't know what they were going through, what they had gone through. I didn't even know apartheid existed. And all I knew was that my skin tone offended my father. I heard it constantly, and it was in a very unflattering way. So my dad being very dark like an Indian guy and my mom being fair, it was just logical. Half of us were going to be dark, the other half was going to be fair. And let me tell you one thing, there was an invisible dividing line within my family. And you didn't choose which side you wanted to be in. You were just placed there. You were either in the fair or dark, and that was it. So, like I said, I didn't know what racism was, but I did know something. I knew that my skin tone was wrong. And this is how my identity, how I saw myself, and it was all in a distorted manner, to the point where I became chronically and painfully shy. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to draw attention to me. I didn't mix well. I was very much of a loner. Um, I became more of an observer, and I would always be on the outside looking in, and that was how I preferred it then, because my skin tone was wrong, and it wasn't just wrong in my home, it seemed to be wrong in the community as well. And you know something, what I also discovered through all of this, I came to realize that it wasn't just my home that was infected by this skin tone issue. Many homes were infected by it, and so was our communities. Um, and it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating, but it's just something that you just had to, you just lived with it. You lived with it, you lived with the trauma of it, etc. So, obviously, this started me wanting to know the why, the why. Why are things the way they are? I knew of apartheid, it didn't affect me. Because I wasn't affected by it, because I wasn't born before it, it didn't have an impact on me. I couldn't understand, but it meant I needed to do my own due diligence, and I did. I started way back when. I was young and I started it. I needed to know why. Why is my dad the way he is towards me? I mean, obviously, he was like that with all the fair ones, but that's their story to tell. I'm telling mine. So, and you know what? What I discovered in later years as an adult, first thing that I discovered was, you know, my mom and my dad, they're just human beings, same like everybody else, with their flaws, failings, weaknesses, and strengths, and all of that. They were not ever going to be the super mom or the super dad or the perfect mom or the perfect dad. They were just going to be mom and dad, and that was it. Flaws and warts and all. That was who God had given me, and you know, that was my parents, and that was it as far as I'm concerned. They were my parents. Love them. And there you go. So, but what I discovered, you know, having chats with my dad, etc., this genuinely was an issue that I had for years. I was eager to know, what was your life like? How were you raised? How was this? How was that? And all my questions led me to answers, and those answers led me to more questions, and it was just like a rabbit hole. But inevitably, it's gotten me to where I am now. But what I want to say is this. I looked at it from my dad's point of view. Yeah, he was a man. He's male, so a male needs to take control of his family and provide for his family and whatever. And yeah, he was having to bend for the government, because now the only control he ever had was in the family home, and the only one he could lash out was at the family, in his own family. We were the ones that bore the brunt of it, because he was powerless to lash out at the government. And I mean, that feeling of impotence, of powerlessness, it probably caused, no, not probably, it caused massive issues within him. And so it wasn't us fair ones that he hated. It was the regime of the time that he hated. He just couldn't, yeah, we just looked like representations of that particular population group. But nonetheless, life goes on, you know, life goes on. You don't stay stuck where you are. Life does go on. And for me, I came to fully understand racism and all that it entailed. And I was totally horrified when I found out all these things. So my story just highlights the painful legacy of internalized racism and colorism within families. And the dynamics that I've described, where skin tone becomes a factor in family relationships and favoritism, has led to deep-rooted issues and divisions. And now where did this all stem from? Well, it's rooted in social beauty standards and historical oppression. There we go. Where lighter skin is perceived as more desirable. And the mere fact that these biases can be perpetuated within families, it adds another layer of complexity to the issue. It adds another layer of complexity to communities. So what do we as individuals do about addressing this issue? I mean, can we address it? And can we do it in a healthy manner, in a positive manner that's going to empower us, etc.? Yes, we can. We need to address it by doing self-reflection and awareness. We need to recognize and acknowledge that internalized racism and racial self-hatred does exist, and it's alive. And it does have an impact on oneself and others. We have to start thinking critically, learn about our history, etc. We have to connect with others who share similar values, celebrate and claim our own cultural heritage, and promote a positive representation of diverse groups. So I'm a woman of color. I have the blood and the DNA of many nations and nationalities flowing through my veins, and I'm super proud of it because I am unique. And then we need to prioritize, like seriously prioritize, emotional and psychological well-being. We need to do that. Seek counseling. We definitely do need to. And then we need to share our knowledge. Share it with the younger generation. Let us gain their perspective of things as well. Just remember, we each generation have a story to tell. We need to tell it. We need to have this whole intergenerational thing going. And then we need to recognize that internalized racism is a lifelong process. And we need to commit to it fully. For our sake, the sake of our families, and for the sake of our communities. We can't turn a blind eye anymore. We can't blame anyone anymore. What's done is done. It's happened, it's happened. It's now about looking back at ourselves and seeing the wood for the trees and then working on that so that we can actually better our lives and the lives of our children, our families, thus, bettering the lives of our communities and changing the mindsets. So we need to be mindful of our thoughts and actions. We need to learn to recognize when internal racism is rearing its ugly head. And when it starts to influence the way we think and the way we look at people, perceive people, and the way in our actions. And then we need to change it. When we recognize at that moment, we need to change it there and then so that it does not destroy. Because that's what it's done. It has destroyed. And it's horrible because the process, the not only the process, but the time, it is a process for healing. It takes a long time. But obviously, once you become self-aware and you do personal reflections, and when you start looking at yourself and you start weighing what you say and you start asking pivotal questions, it's worth it in the end. And here I am today, knowing all these things, and I want to share it. Cannot keep it to myself. It would be harmful to me to share it. Not to share it, sorry. I have to share because knowledge is power. So I'll see you guys with the next segment, and we're going to delve into domestic violence, another subculture within our culture. I bid you adieu.